Good afternoon, everyone. For everyone who's here in person, as well as everyone who's joining us online, you are joining us at a great time for, as Mary said at the beginning of Mass, today is the kickoff of our fall season called Game Plan. Over the next 4 weeks, we are going to tackle one of life's big questions. God, what do you want me to do? I am going to use some football analogies, if you haven't picked up, so hopefully I don't fumble them. Mary stole my jokes at the last Mass, and no one laughed either, so I guess this one's on me. Finding and understanding God's will in your life at times can feel frustrating and heavy. But wherever God is concerned, there shouldn't be that. There should be a feeling of light, of peace, of joy, and of optimism. And it is our hope that these coming 4 weeks will be a journey of self-discovery for you, and maybe even some transformation. As you leave today, I'd invite you to take one of these playbooks with you, and they're meant to be helps over the coming weeks. They have questions and prayers and prompts that go along with the series these next weeks. Lots of X's and O's. If you're a football fan, you probably know that the greatest professional football coach of all time, until Coach Belichick came along, was Vince Lombardi. Very good. And that's why whoever wins the Super Bowl gets the Lombardi Trophy. Excellent. It might seem funny, but one year when Coach Lombardi's team lost the Super Bowl, he began their first practice by going back to basics. He was with his team, and he held up in front of them a football, and he looked at them and he said, "Gentlemen, this is a football. It has laces right here, and if you hold it like this and throw it, you can make it go in a spiral." And then one of his receivers raised his hand and said, "Slow down, coach, you're going too fast." I can imagine that these future Hall of Famers, these elite high-caliber players, must have been taken back when the coach started with the most basic of fundamentals that we all take for granted. But I'm sure he got their attention. You see, we can have the greatest coaches in the world, but unless we listen to them, unless we follow them, we are not going to achieve our potential. Listening and following. Those are two fundamentals that Jesus shows us in today's gospel. In the gospel, we can kind of see Jesus assuming the role of a coach and Peter being his player, except Peter's not listening. It's kind of funny to imagine the scene. And this will be my last pun of the homily, I hope. So the apostles are there in a sort of huddle. Okay. I probably should have stopped the jokes when no one laughed at any of the masses. I'm committed. So the disciples are there together. And at this point in the gospel, Jesus had been teaching and healing throughout Galilee. But at this point, now they've come and they've made a turn. They've made a turn, and now they're headed towards Jerusalem, where Jesus' earthly mission is going to be accomplished. So this is the setting, and in this sort of huddle, Jesus is sort of testing them to see how much of the playbook they've internalized. Now, keep in mind, at this point, the apostles have been with Jesus for almost 3 years, so they should have gotten it. And Jesus begins with a question. He says to them, "Who do the people say that I am?" But that wasn't the important question, because the important question was the question that he directed to them. Jesus said, "Who do you say that I am?" And Peter, as the captain of the apostles, he answers for the group. He says, "You are the Christ, Now, Christ means Messiah or anointed one. So what Peter rather is doing is acknowledging Jesus to be the one through whom God's promises will be accomplished and fulfilled. Who is Jesus? That is a question that you have to answer in the depths of your heart. Who is Jesus? Or to put it another way, do you believe that Jesus is the one whom God sent to save you? The one who is going to keep all of the promises that God made you? A lot weighs in your answer. Because if the answer is yes, and I hope that it is, then Jesus is the most important person to your destiny, the most important person to your happiness, as well as your successes and your failures in this life and the next. So again, we can imagine Peter, he's given a right answer, so he's feeling kind of smug, and we'll leave it there, smug. And then Jesus says, so he continues, and Jesus says, oh, by the way, just so you know, right now we're going to Jerusalem. And we're going to Jerusalem so that I can suffer, so that I can be harshly treated by the leaders of our people, so that I can be killed, and then so that I can rise. Now, at a certain point here, Peter must have stopped listening because he didn't understand the rise part. And it's this part of the huddle where Peter sort of takes Jesus aside, and now Peter's going to try to tell Jesus how to do his job. How does that go? Jesus rebukes him. He says, "Get behind me, Satan." Yikes. You were thinking not as God does, but as human beings do. You see, Peter had an image of the Messiah in his mind, but the image that was in his mind didn't align with the Messiah that Jesus actually was. Peter was thinking in earthly terms, but what Jesus was saying is true happiness is not found in health or wealth or earthly success or the ability to get what you want. And maybe that sting of being called Satan isn't directed just to Peter, but to all of us. Because all of us from time to time seek to define our success and our happiness apart from Jesus in two earthly terms. And even though it stings when we're corrected, sometimes through other people, sometimes through our conscience or another way, that's a good thing. Because that shows that God is still working on us, that he hasn't given up on us, and that he's bringing us along. So after this little sidebar off on the side, Jesus then calls together the crowd as well as all of the disciples. In my mind, this is kind of like on a practice when the coach calls all of the players around him and they take a knee to listen to what he's going to say. And this is where Jesus gives the fundamentals. This is a football. The fundamentals of discipleship. Jesus says, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." The fundamentals are called the fundamentals because they don't change. They remain the same from age to age. Discipleship is, and always has been, about following Jesus wherever you find yourself. It has nothing to do with your age, nothing to do with your level of education, your income, your gender, or anything else. Discipleship is quite simply about learning to follow Jesus more closely wherever you are. Now, discipleship takes work because it's like a muscle. It's faith. And faith takes discipline and exercise to build its strength. So the first step in self-denial is this: listening and following. Listening and following where God is leading you. And sometimes, admittedly, it does mean that you have to go against your own preferences, to go against things that maybe you don't want to do. And self-denial is a reminder that your life does not belong to you. Your life does not belong to you. Your life belongs to God. And as long as you think that your life is about you, well, you're going to try to exercise power over others. You're going to try to control your circumstances. And then you are going to be frustrated when your plans fail. Another way we can look at this is thinking of self-denial as being about making room for others. And we saw that Jesus did this during his time on earth. Jesus made room for others. Jesus chose to give in a world that takes. Jesus chose to heal where others injured. Jesus chose to forgive when others condemned. And Jesus chose to love when the world was full of hate. And with each of these actions, you see, Jesus made room for others, and he showed that God is present. And you know something? God is still present. God is still present here in your life. He's present in your home. He's present in your workplace. He's present in your school. He's present in your career, your relationships. He's present everywhere. Although very often he's hidden. And you have to look hard to see him. But he's always there. So, what do I want you to do? Over the next week, as well as over the next 4 weeks, I want you to spend some time with the playbook that we'll give you as you leave. Spend some time in prayer with the questions, spend some time in reflection, and think about your answers. Because maybe right now you're feeling exhausted. Maybe you're feeling overburdened and tired. Maybe you've got some uncertainty, or maybe you even have some big decisions that are looming. But regardless of all that, don't despair. Don't despair because God is present. Don't despair because God has a plan for your life. And don't be despair because God is life.